I have just pinned a number onto a jersey for the first time in years. I'm doing a race, my first ever gravel race. You might be wondering how I got here, so let's reverse.
Okay guys, item 5, 111k gravel race in Scotland. Who's up for it?
Too short for me. I'm training for Unbound.
I'm just a bit concerned. It's quite far away. I'm worried I might get lost.
I mean, I'd love to, but it's the day of the election for the Wax Chain Club, and I'm running for president.
Dan?
Dan! Dan? Dan?
Dan?
So there's your answer. Peer pressure. Unlike the others, I didn't have an excuse. Apart from age, ability, recent training, lack of gravel experience, a recent cold and ingrowing toenail, tennis elbow, and a really nasty little verruca on my right foot. All right, I'll do it. So here I am, driving to a race. A UCI Gravel World Championships qualifier, no less. Thankfully, I have been training quite hard for 5 weeks. Now that I've been roped into doing this event, and given that there's a spot at the UCI Gravel World Championships in my age category at stake, I felt I should probably come up with a plan. So given my current FTP estimate of around 275 watts, the plan is as follows. Sprint from the gun, then hold the 350 watts I've suddenly and randomly convinced myself I can sustain for the next 15 minutes until I completely blow my doors. Spend the next 3 hours trying to recover from that ridiculously stupid effort while simultaneously questioning my life choices. Not just why I was such a tit at the start, but also why I'm a bit of a tit in general. I'll also down a million gels because that's what I've heard the pros do, but because I haven't trained my gut, I'm parking the life choices thoughts and toying with whether it's better to chamois or find a quiet place where I'm not going to be seen by onboard cameras and end up going viral on TikTok like a Tom Dumoulin bought from Wish. In the last 10 minutes, I'll either have finally recovered from the first 15 minutes, or more likely die 1,000 deaths and crawl to the line. Either way, I'll cross the line and collapse in a heap on the floor, just like Mathieu van der Poel at Amstel Gold 2019, but instead of having triumphed at one of the biggest races in the world, I finished 2/3 of the way down the field in my age category of 45 to 49.
I have never, ever seen anything as pathetic as that in my life.
It's not a great plan, admittedly, but let's face it, when it comes to racing, it's what happens to all of us. Also, 45 to 49. I'm only 44, just the way that the age categories work, apparently. Now, as a youth category mountain bike rider, I distinctly remember looking at the veterans racing at the time and thinking how old they looked. And it's only now I'm here myself, I realise how young we still are and how cool we still are. I mean, I'm slay. Me here specifically, I'm lit. I'm fire. Why? Because of the bike I'm using. Check this bad boy out. But that's all you're going to see for now. I am going to leave you in suspense. You are going to be shocked when I reveal this absolute weapon of a bike later on. Not because it's got a motor, it's not an e-bike. Before that, let me talk you through the event that I'm tackling today. It's called the Gralloch, a 111-kilometre race that starts and finishes in the Gatehouse of Fleet, southwest Scotland. There's 1,761 metres of climbing and over 80% of the route is on gravel. Quite a mix of gravel though, some smooth, some less so, some quite rough. Avoiding punctures is a challenge in itself. The biggest climb comes at the start, Fuffolk Hill. Yes, you heard that right. Takes you to the highest point of the race, 281 metres above sea level after 6.5 kilometres. Not an easy start. The next test comes 15 kilometres later at Kennick Hill, after which there's some tarmac respite and then rolling gravel roads that lead you to Slaughter Hill, the most northerly part of the route. The final climb is Loch Gralloch, which peaks at 21 k's to go, after which it's a fast, predominantly downhill run back to the finish with the last 11 k's on asphalt road. The Gralloch is a reasonably new race. However, already last year, it became a qualifying event for the UCI Gravel World Championships. Previous winners on the men's side are Matt Holmes and Connor Swift, although obviously they were lucky I wasn't competing in those events, whilst Tiffany Cromwell and Gerrit Schures have won the women's. This year, they've also added a sportive on the Sunday, meaning that over the course of this beautiful weekend, thousands of riders are taking part. I felt a little bit apprehensive at the start. Not too bad with the nerves, but they were nerves that I've not experienced for years. But you can only do what you can do. It's not like a road race where you know you need to keep up with the peloton and the bunch, and if you're dropped, it's a disaster. But I was up for it, so I wanted to get a good start. So we lined up in the pens. I was like third row there, quite wide. It was a sprint round to get to the actual start line. And I was still third row. That sprint was quite hard. I just had to do 2 sprints to get here in this position. I wanted to get as near to the front as possible because it immediately goes up quite a long tarmac, then gravel climb. And when it did start climbing, pretty quickly I thought to myself, I can't sustain this. So I went from probably 20th, 25th position. And I was trying to count because I was sort of aware of where I needed to be for the Gravel World Championships qualification. And I was looking at the road thinking, there must be at least 70 people that have gone past me at this point, so this is going to be touch and go. And I didn't feel that great at the very beginning, but it was what it was, and I settled into it after that. I have averaged 280. So sort of in the plan, but it's felt harder. It feels like I'm about halfway through, but I'm 13 k's in, but I've made it to quite a nice group. I'm going downhill now, see you later. So the first climb takes roughly 20 minutes. It's up and down, but generally climbing all the way to that point. It was quite difficult to get into groups because you're catching the previous categories, and so you're never quite sure where you're at. There's some people that had problems at the start that zoom past, and you quickly think to yourself, I can't keep up with them, so I'll just settle with where I am. And so I was with various different people and just trying to sort of sustain a decent power, but not go... I was worried about the unknown. I've just done so few long rides, or barely any, that I just didn't want to get to the last part and completely blow up and cramp. So I took it reasonably steady. Enjoyed the downhills, especially when I had a clean run, I could see my line. Yeah, they were good fun. Like my mountain bike background came to the fore, I think. It's all very friendly in this group round here. I say that, none of us have been saying anything. We're all, we've all gone too hard for the first 22 Ks. How are you feeling?
Bit hot.
Bit hot, yeah. Yeah, we're in Scotland, what do you expect? Not this. Thought I'd just take a little break from the race. I'll catch that group back up later on because I wanted to give you a proper look at the bike I'm using today. Just a little bit special. This is a Canyon Grail CFR, and if you recognise it, that's because it's actually Alex's, not mine. I've got to give it back after the race, unfortunately. However, I have made one very key and significant change to Alex's bike for the Gralloch event, in that I've got front suspension. This has been 4 years in the making through a collaboration between Canyon and DT Swiss. So first things first, I'm going to do what all 90s kids used to do when they saw front suspension forks. The fork itself is called the F1321. However, in combination with this frame, this bike becomes the Canyon Grail CFR RIFT. The forks themselves have 40mm of travel through an air spring system, which is fully tunable through the air pressure and the rebound damping. On first glance, I'd actually say the forks bear more of a resemblance to rigid rather than suspension. I think that's down to the rather neat curved design of the crown here. Incidentally, you can fit tyres up to 50mm in these forks. The fork has a lockout, which is located here on the left drop, which means I can very easily change between rigid and suspension depending on the terrain. Now, there are a number of benefits to running suspension forks off-road if your local gravel is not quite as smooth as something like Strade Bianche. The biggest one, I would say, is just general comfort, and the longer you ride, the more you're going to notice it. Number 2 is traction, especially on corners, and number 3 is reducing your chances of puncturing on that front wheel. Now, if you speak to any mountain biker, they'll tell you all about the benefits of suspension forks in that they can get you out of all sorts of trouble if you happen to end up on the wrong line. For the rest, I'm running a SRAM 1x-group set, and actually that is one other difference to Alex's bike. He had a 48-tooth front chainring on there, which he basically claimed I wouldn't be capable of turning round, so kindly he's put a 42-tooth on for me.
I'm running Pirelli's Cinturato tyres for the extra level of puncture protection that's crucial on this course. 45 on the front and 40 on the back, which I've put on Elite's gravel-specific G45 carbon wheels that come in at 1,300 grams.
I've got my Stella Italia saddle there at the top, and then the all-important brand new Wahoo Element Bolt version 3. I've plugged the route into that so I know how to pace myself on the climbs and when I'm nearing the top of them. And got the all-important bell, so I can warn riders approaching from behind that I'm currently in reverse. And just finally, a couple of Camelback water bottles, but I've also got their hydration pack and a boatload of precision gels. Right, better try and catch that group back up. So around halfway through, I actually felt like I was more just riding to get to the end rather than properly racing at that point. Like I didn't feel great, and the feeling in my legs, I got this sense that if I kept really pushing and racing, that I would start to cramp towards the end. I was still going reasonably hard and the power was all right, but it just didn't really feel like I was racing. But then things sort of gradually started to get better, and other people that I was with started to drop off and I didn't see them again, so I was clearly going okay at that point. The middle bit, it was enjoyable. Like I said, I just didn't feel like I could race for a full 4 hours from start to finish. It was unbelievable how many people were on the side of the road throughout the whole 111 kilometres. In fact, even towards the end, the last 4 kilometres, I was with this chap in a group, and he punctured on the tarmac at the end. I said, that's the worst luck possible. I was so close to the finish. 49k's done. Starting to feel it in the legs. Quite hard to get in a group because there's so many different categories. Everything just keeps switching and changing, but as does the terrain. I didn't stop at any of the feed zone because that was planned. I didn't want to lose any time by stopping and refilling. So I had 1.5 litres of carb mix from Precision in my Camelback hydration pack. I had the electrolyte mix in one of my bottles and just plain water in the other bottle. And then, let me get my prop out. I had 3 of these bad boys in my back pocket, 90 grams of carbs in a single gel. So I was just sipping on that a little bit at a time. And I think that saw me through to the finish. You know, I had plenty of carbohydrates with me, didn't cramp. I think a large part of that was down to the hydration strategy. So yeah, all good, didn't need to stop. I'm over halfway. I'll repeat, I'm over halfway. I was solo for quite some time at a point where I sort of dropped the group that I was in, didn't catch anyone, no one caught me. I don't know how long it was for, but reasonable amount of time. Well, I'd say one of the biggest things that helped me today, I mean, I love my data obviously, but having the route in the Wahoo at the front with the elevation profile just means that you can see what's coming. And so if it's short, sharp climbs, you can just really nail the speed into it and almost get up without increasing the power. And I could see when the really long climbs were coming, and so I knew to pace myself on those ones. But it's just nice to know when the top's coming so that you can pace your effort, go a bit harder over the top and carry some speed into the next descent. 80k's in. I'm feeling it. I was half expecting Nick Craig to come past now. He's in an older age group, started a few minutes behind. Absolute legend of UK cycling. Caught up with him yesterday by the Portaloos. So yeah, I had a bit of a conversation because we were in next door cabins. Couldn't hear everything he was saying because I think he had a bit of a stomach upset, but yeah, good to catch up. I might be going delirious. So I felt really good in the last 20 kilometres. Like I said, that was partly down to the fact it's mainly downhill and a lot of tarmac. But just looking at the power, kicking out corners on the couple of small climbs there are in the finale, I just felt really good at that point. And that was the only time I was in a proper group where we were working together. And I mean, it's partly down to the tarmac, it makes it easier. But yeah, it was nice. Sort of brought back memories of the old days of road racing and pressing on towards the finish. In a fairly similar position to my road racing days, I expect as well. I was quite relieved to get towards the finish. Like any event, you sort of push yourself as hard as you think you can for whatever the duration of the event is. So when you're coming close to the finish, that's when you start to feel the fatigue a bit. But yeah, it's just great crossing the finish line at the end of any event, isn't it? And feeling like you've done all right. And then I was really pleased with the result. Well, I finished. It's the main thing. And I've now got a tart cherry juice recovery drink to prevent cramps and help with other things. I'm really pleased. I didn't know what to expect from today, but I had a few main goals. Number one was not to crash, so I ticked that one off. Number two was not to puncture. Obviously, there's a bit of luck involved in that, but thanks to Pirelli, I didn't puncture on either wheel. Didn't have a mechanical either, so the bike was fantastic. Number three was to do it in sub 4 hours. I've been really obsessed with looking at Strava and online videos from the Gralloch from last year over the last week or so, and I figured I needed to be sub 4 hours to have a chance of qualifying. And as it turns out, the results are in, and I finished 26th in my category of 45 to 49. So I'm well inside the qualification for the Gravel World Championship, so you never know, might do them later on in the year. But what an amazing event. So many people here. I've seen so many old friends from mountain bike days back in the 90s, etc. There's just thousands of people taking part, locked out with the weather, of course. But the bike was absolutely amazing. I mean, firstly, the fact that I didn't have a puncture or a mechanical was brilliant. These Pirelli tyres are great. The suspension forks made a really quite big difference, I think, because you just don't plough into any big holes with a massive impact on your front wheel, because you can't always see what's coming up in front of you. The thing I'm most pleased about, though, is that at the end I felt really strong. There was a point in the middle couple of hours where I was just sort of felt like I was riding around and not really racing, which was understandable because I haven't done any rides of this length, apart from one with Connor where I had an e-bike, so that doesn't count. So I thought I might die towards the end, like I said in the plan earlier on. But actually I felt really strong in the last hour, so that's what I'm most pleased about. Anyway, you might see me at an event again soon. You never know. I got a medal. There we go. Finisher's medal from the Gralloch. Happy with that.
You're going to take that with you to the UCI World Champs?
UCI World Gravel Champs. Might have to carry on training after Manchester to London. I've never been world champion before, so that'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'm joking. We'll see. Watch this space.